As mentioned very early in the course in PowerShell, today in PowerShell 6 and PowerShell 7, we're no longer using the host window, we're using the terminal window. So Windows Terminal, which looks like this, has the tabs in it like this, and I can choose PowerShell within that tab, within any given tab, and write all of my PowerShell stuff right there. I mentioned early on in the course that when it comes to writing scripts, we do have in Windows PowerShell an ISE, and let me just call that up. And you see here PowerShell ISE. However, we don't have a PowerShell ISE in PowerShell 6 and PowerShell 7, which are non-Windows versions of PowerShell. So this is a Windows version of PowerShell and happens to be PowerShell version 5.1 in this ISE. This is, however, where we can write scripts. So for PowerShell 6 or PowerShell 7, since you don't have the ISE available for you in that, you might want to use Visual Studio Code, which is a Microsoft product and one that is free and easy to get and is modular. That is to say, you can add modules for PowerShell as well as many other programming platforms. And so I'm just going to call up VS here and then click Visual Studio Code. Now, it's not on your machine by default. You'll have to install it if you don't already have it. But here is VS Studio Code or Visual Studio Code, and you can see that I have a PowerShell icon right here. That is actually an add-on. See this set of blocks? These are extensions. If I click extensions and I type PowerShell, you'll see that a PowerShell extension will pop up here, and it's going to be this first one that has this PowerShell icon. I would install that PowerShell extension if I want to work in PowerShell, and then once I've done that here, I can now work in PowerShell, and all of the commands are going to pop up here in a moment, but I'm not going to wait for that. I'm going to click New File, Text File, and then right here where it says Select a Language, I'm just going to go ahead and go down to PowerShell. Here we go, and now I'm in PowerShell. I've got the commands over here, and I've got the immediate window, that is to say where I can do my my one-line immediate PowerShell commands down here, or I can write my scripts up here. This is very much like the ISE. Now in the next few videos we'll be using the ISE. However, you can use Visual Studio Code to write your scripts, and I just wanted to make that clear and make sure everybody knows about Visual Studio Code and that you can write scripts for PowerShell 6 and PowerShell 7 in it. This page, I'm going to put a link to this page. This is a Microsoft page from learn.microsoft.com on some of the things you might want to know about using VS Code and PowerShell. So I'll just put that link there if you're interested in exploring writing scripts in PowerShell 6 or PowerShell 7 using VS Code.